Let's do this. The Cult of Hockey Quick Cap. I'm David Staples with the Edmonton Journal, and I'm here today with Bruce McCurdy. Hey, Bruce.
Hey, David, how are you doing this morning?
Good. I guess I must be hyped up because we never hardly do this, but there's some big changes in the lineup for the Oilers roster. So we'll go with, it's why I call it, we'll do the quick cast. Two quick thoughts each, and we'll discuss them. How are you doing?
Kind of looking forward to the game tonight. They're getting going. Not real surprised they're making some changes after getting whitewashed in game one. And
Although the grade A
with some
shots were
old
68.
after some old problems resurfaced in game one,
Yeah.
So
I'm not surprised at all either, but they did, as I was saying, they're like just 16-8 for the grade A shots. It's not like the Oilers were outplayed. So we'll go with two quick thoughts each. Bruce, what's your first quick thought about these changes?
Right. Well, I guess maybe we should mention what the changes are, which is looks like Desharnais in, Ceci out, unless they're going 11-7. It certainly looks like Desharnais is in. And up front, we've had a switch around in lines, which is not entirely clear because Evander Kane almost never takes, or should I say, never takes morning skates anymore. But there's not an obvious placeholder for him in the top six, as has been the case in the past, where one of the extras fills in for him, and it's pretty obvious who it's going to be. There's no extras listed in the top six this morning, so either Kane's in the bottom six and one of these guys is out, or Kane's out. And either's possible because Kane is clearly not 100%. He got hurt in the last game of the Dallas series. He was fairly ineffective in game one. So I guess this is my first quick thought is what's going on with Evander Kane. Reportedly, Mark Spector says that he was rarely sitting down on the bench the other night. So whatever it is that's bothering him affects his ability to sit on the bench. That can't be good. Whatever it is, if it hurts too much to sit down, it's probably not good. And so, will Kane be in the lineup? We see him as one of the Oilers' counter weapons to the Florida duo of Matthew Tkachuk and Sam Bennett, both of whom were running around a little bit the other night, and both of whom ran into Mr. Kane at various times, with Kane responding in kind to Bennett's accidental collision with Connor McDavid by himself accidentally colliding with Bennett a little bit later in the game. And there was also a little video, I don't know if you saw it, of Kane doing a little drive-by of Tkachuk and giving him what appeared to be a quick punch as he went by. And there was complaining about that, but whatever. Tkachuk and Bennett get, chances are good they had it coming. But on the flip side, whatever Kane gets, chances are pretty good he had it coming. And the running feud, I don't mind, but if Kane is too banged up to be effective, and those two guys are not, advantage Florida, because those guys can wreak havoc out there. Tkachuk, frankly, I thought was pretty quiet in game one, but Bennett was a huge factor in that game.
Kane is giving like he's one of the players selected to be interviewed today. So I suspect if he wasn't playing, he wouldn't be giving a feature interview.
So who comes out then?
I think it's.
Oh, you go.
Bruce, I think it's one of two things. Holloway is slotted in on the second line right now with Henrique. I think if they wanted Henrique at center, they would have kept him at center for the line rushes. I think. Right. So I think he's with Draisaitl, but I could see Holloway slotting down to the third line. So you'd have Kane on the second line with Henrique and Draisaitl. And you'd have then, now I don't know if Henrique plays his off wing, though, because Kane's a left wing. So
Either one.
But
And
I think,
Kane does as well.
yeah, I think the wingers can figure that out. So I think that might be the move. And so then you'd have Holloway, let's say, and McLeod and Fogle on the third line, which is a group I'd wanted to see in the playoffs. I don't think we have seen it with Corey Perry slotting out. Or you could just have Kane slotting in on the third line and either Perry or Fogle slotting out both. So that would be my guess. Any thoughts?
Yeah, well, Perry's slot in the roster has to be pretty tenuous at this point. He already had a 5-game vacation late in round 2 and early in round 3, and he got back in and he had a good game in game 4 and made assisted on a goal, crucial goal that helped turn that game and series around.
Mm-hmm.
But it remains his one and only lonely point of the entire playoffs to this point. And last game, there wasn't any offense to speak of from Perry, but he was also one of the players who was, in at least our take on the play, responsible for getting beat by Sam Bennett, like the whole team seemed to be on that second Florida goal. And then in the third period, he took a fairly unnecessary penalty, interference penalty that put the Oilers on the back foot, penalty killing when they're, trying to come from behind a 2-goal deficit. And coaches tend not to be real happy about, penalties that, well, in almost any situation really, but in that one, it wasn't a good penalty. And, where is the upside with this player, right? He's been playing banged up. He was slow when he got here, and he seems to be slower now, which I think is from the physical toll. But that's a guy that's just sort of hanging on to the fringes of the roster at the moment. And this morning, I mean, they've got him on a line with Fogle and McLeod. Well, here's the stats for that line in the playoffs. Warren Fogle, 1 goal, an empty netter in game 1 of the playoffs, nothing since in 16 games, 2 assists, 3 points, -8. Ryan McLeod, 18 games, 1 goal, that big one in game 4, 1 point, -5. Corey Perry, 14 games, 1 assist, 1 point, -3. And all 3 of them have found themselves in the press box at various times in the playoffs. And, these are guys that were regulars throughout the season, or at least the half season for Perry that he was with the club, and were, every night players. And now in the playoffs, there's just not delivering, some defensive play and nothing in the way of offense whatsoever, and getting outscored. And so I can understand shuffling the deck, but his options are limited.
There's an update on X. Kane is playing tonight. Jack Michaels says, which is no surprise at all. So yeah, we don't know.
No indication for whom.
And Ceci is out, it says, so he's not playing tonight.
So no 11-7 then.
Yeah, Bruce. The third line is. I'm glad Kane's in, and I hope that the third line gets changed because 2 goals between those 3 players in the playoffs. For me, the whole thing with Corey Perry has been building and crystallized on that second goal because it was such a small play in a way. His play at the blue line where Sam Bennett chips it in, but it was really like, what are you doing out there, Corey Perry? You're a veteran NHL player. This is the playoffs. Their top 4 checking forward dumps it in to the zone, and you don't get a piece of him. You don't block his way. You don't hit him. You don't get stick on puck. It's a flyby essentially by Perry at the blue line. And I've been seeing that a lot with him, honestly, like not getting engaged physical. He's supposed to be a physical player. He's not hitting anybody. He's not engaging physically. Could be that he's just too slow to do so. Or it could be he's hurt and he's shying away from it. I don't know what it is. Listen, he was a much better player in the regular season. He was far more effective in the regular season, and I thought he would help in the playoffs. So I'm going to go with injury, really slowing him down. That's, I think, clearly what's going on here. And but I don't think he can help the team win. In fact, I think he's a negative, and would help the other team win if he's in the lineup based on that particular play, because I'm just seeing it repeatedly. I don't have the same feelings. I don't think Fogle and McLeod have been effective, but I don't think, like, on that play, McLeod, for instance, he got a small piece of Bennett going in, right?
But he couldn't ride him off. Yeah.
He couldn't ride him off, but he tried. Yeah. But he tried at least, and he tried to get a piece of him. And he did get a small piece of him, just not enough to slow down the cannonball. But I don't feel like McLeod and Fogle have necessarily they're not leaking goals against. They're just not creating on the attack. And it's really disappointing with Fogle, who had such a great regular season. But I don't see them as defensive liabilities like I see Corey Perry. And I think they can maintain offensive zone time, which I don't see with Perry. So if Kane or Holloway's on that line, that's important, because it would be nice to see that line getting going. And I wonder why Derek Ryan isn't on that line as another alternative, but he's clearly not playing. So I don't know. I thought Ryan's been fairly effective these playoffs, so I'm not quite sure why he's sitting out all of a sudden. But
these are the kind of boxcars for Derek Ryan: 14 games, 1 assist, -6.
Well, there might be my answer.
The bottom of the roster is, there's no offense, and they're all, many of them getting significantly outscored.
Yeah.
It's amazing they're here when you look at this collective stats for guys at the bottom of the roster.
Yeah, I mean, who's getting it done? I guess Janmark, Connor Brown, Henrique have been getting it done at the bottom end of the roster. So it's not, and Holloway stepped up from the bottom of the roster to get it done. So I looked, Bruce, at the two-way play of some of these players, and who's holding their own in the playoffs. Their numbers are all down in terms of creating grade A shots. Comparing the regular season to the playoffs, they've all, from McDavid on down, they're all seeing a decrease, which is expected. They're playing tougher competition in the playoffs, so you would expect their numbers to be down. But the numbers that are down the most, the biggest drops in kind of production, are Fogle, Perry, Nugent-Hopkins, Carrick, and McLeod. And Nuge has been, I'm going to say, kind of inconsistent in the playoffs. He's had some really good games, but he's also had some stretches where he disappears. And you got Cat Stevens
scratching at my door.
Don't worry about it. He just wants to have his say.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the biggest move, which is the benching of Ceci and the insertion of Desharnais. You'd think there's a lot of people who think Cody Ceci is the major culprit on the Oilers' defense, and they're probably real happy right now to see this happen. I'm not in that camp, because what I notice is when Ceci hasn't been with Darnell Nurse, he's actually been okay. He was on a pairing with Kulak for a few games, and that really worked. In 96 minutes time on ice, they were 2 goals for, 1 goal against. So they were kind of holding their own in terms of, they weren't getting caved in on the score sheet. When he was with Philip Broberg, that also worked, Bruce. They were 1 goals for, 0 goals against. So Cody Ceci, when he's with Nurse, though, 5 goals for, 14 goals against. When Vincent Desharnais has been with Nurse, and this is the pairing tonight, they've even been worse on a goals for percentage. 2 goals for, 8 goals against. So the common denominator doesn't seem to be Cody Ceci in the troubles. It seems to be it's Darnell Nurse who's really struggled. Bruce, the Oilers without either Nurse or Ceci on the ice, 30 goals for, 19 goals against at even strength. So I don't know if this is going to help. Like, except what you might say is, well, they're going to play about 12 or 13 minutes, Nurse and Ceci at even strength.
There's Desharnais, you mean?
Nurse and Desharnais, excuse me, at even strength. Get limited time, and they'll just ride the other two pairs. What are you thinking?
Yeah, well, Nurse is, as you say, he does seem to be the common denominator where, he's been bleeding goals against regardless of which of those two guys he's been playing with. And overall, 9-4, 23 against at 5-on-5 on the playoffs. And it's, the bleeding is fairly evenly split between Ceci and Desharnais. And it's so frustrating. Like, he plays, he does lots of good things in every game. And usually, you look at the overall mix of those things and the good outweighs the bad, but that hasn't been the case. His offense is completely dried up. He's got 3 secondary assists in the playoffs. That's it, 3 points. And defensively, I think the 1-0 game at LA was the last game where the Oilers played where he wasn't on the ice for a goal against. Right? And this is, playing 15 minutes a game, right? I mean, you give up 1 goal in 15 minutes, that's a 4 goals per 60 rate. That's the good games, whereas 1 goal against. The bad games is 2 goals against, like game 1. And overall, it's just, we've talked about this at our last podcast about -15 being the worst minus figure in 40 years. He still has time to change it for the better or for the worse, I guess, but it was 1983 that Paul Reinhart got torn apart limb from limb by the powerhouse dynasty-bound Edmonton Oilers in a memorable playoff series. But this is now 4 rounds of playoffs and 4 opponents, and it just doesn't seem to be turning around, and it's disappointing and frankly shocking. And that's without taking into account the long term, what's going on here with this player who's got 6 years and $55.5 million left to run on his salary, the cap. I'm not quite sure how the money is distributed. It's only the annual average value that matters. Mm-hmm. And that's a huge friggin' number for underperformance at this point, and it's very deeply concerning.
So I think I think both of us would say that it's fair to say that Nurse has played much better, significantly better for much of his career on defense. That this is a massive defensive slump, and it's been going on for. It started before the playoffs. It started in February, and it's been going on since then. It's just this horrendous pit of defensive despair that he's in right now. And I keep expecting him to settle down and get out of it and play better, because he has done that for long, long stretches in the past against tough competition. So that's the hopeful thing you can think. But I'm not that hopeful it's going to turn around these playoffs, although he seemed to settle down a bit with Kulak for a short period of play. They were outscored 1 goal for, 3 goals against. The shots percentage, though, was pretty much a soft 49%. Okay. So I'm surprised they don't go back with Kulak and Nurse. I don't get that. Like, that's or Broberg and Nurse, which I think would have been the most sensible thing, because Broberg apparently there's conjecture that Kulak might not like it on the other side, but Broberg looked okay there. But Kulak looked okay there too, and I don't know why they just don't go back tonight to Kulak and Nurse and then Broberg and Desharnais. Maybe they want to play Broberg and Kulak, though heavy minutes would be that's my guess, is they want to play Kulak, the top 2 pairings, heavy minutes, and just limited minutes with Nurse and Desharnais against weaker competition, and see if they can survive it. So Bruce, it's so bad with Nurse. I mean, there's been a number of people who have been pushing for him to play forward next year, give him a try at forward. And, I honestly don't think it's a terrible idea. He's big, fast, can move the puck, aggressive. Like as a winger, Darnell Nurse might be a very effective hockey player. And in terms of a fallback plan, if he can't get out of this defensive slump, if this continues on, we continue to see this into next year. I mean, I think they should. That's a rational thing to think about. Other players have made the move. Dustin Byfuglien, Dustin Byfuglien, not Byfuglien. Dustin Byfuglien, Red Kelly, famously with the Toronto Maple Leafs way back when. But there have been other players who have made this move.
From defense to forward, I've long been fascinated with players that made that switch in their career, often from forward to defense, like the great Mark Howe, or for an Oilers example, Marty McSorley, who I believe to be the only player in NHL history, at least since very, very early days when players were very fluid, to win the Stanley Cup in consecutive years, playing first forward and then defense. And you mentioned the great Red Kelly, of course, who moved up. Doug Moens, who moved up and became a very effective winger in the back half of his career. Brent Burns that moved back and forth between the two. Dustin Byfuglien. Although both those big men wound up back on defense over time, moving the other way. For Nurse and it tells the tale that, this is a guy, core member of the leadership group, locked up to 8-year big money, max term, with plenty of no movement restrictions in it, that we're even pondering that, this guy isn't a fixture at the top of the lineup at his natural position. And yet we're looking at these numbers, and he's played a third of the minutes for the Oilers in the playoffs at 5-on-5, just over a third of the minutes. He's been on the ice for 23 of the 40 goals against, and he's been on the ice for 9 of the 39 goals for. So, bleeding badly at both ends of the rink. And you can talk about shot shares all you want. Well, last game their shot shares were terrific, him and Ceci. Well, except for, guess what? 2 of the shots were uncontested slam dunks from the low slot. Take those away, and then we can talk about shot shares.
Knoblauch talked about their X goals for being good, and I don't know if I even buy that. Like, their shot shares were pretty good, but man, those two, did they properly measure the enormity of the 2 chances they gave up? I mean, come on, like those were just the highest danger kind of chances that you're going to get. So I think those were expected goals against like 50-50 plays, whether the goalie's going to get it or not.
He's going to hit the goalie or not.
Yeah.
Because he's not going to move and stop those shots. It's either going to hit him or it's going to miss the net entirely or it's going to go in.
Yeah. And I don't know. So I think he could be a decent winger, Bruce, and maybe even a top 6 winger. So that's what you'd need for someone obviously making that amount of money. But the guy can hit, he can skate with the puck. He's got a decent shot. I mean, he's not a gifted offensive player at all. Like his offensive playmaking it's like he doesn't, when he rushes in, there's been a tendency for the play to end with the rush. But if he can just take it to the net with a plum, he could be I think that might work.
Yeah. Well, that's next year's problem. I don't think we're really seeing him at left wing in the Stanley Cup Finals just yet. But I don't think we're seeing him come out of the lineup. I think he's a fixture in the lineup, but they got to find some way, some partnership, some deployment that's doesn't wind up being the red light zone game after game after game.
Yeah, boy, he took a lot of heavy flack after that last game. And there's people, the typical usual suspects, who always criticize him in Oilers fan base. But the media here has been pretty, I'm going to say, gentle with Darnell Nurse, to put it politely. And there's been very limited public criticism of Nurse in the Edmonton media. But people like Paul Bissonnette was saying the guy's an anchor. Paul Bissonnette from TNT. Jeff Marek lit into the Nurse Ceci pairing on the 32 Thoughts podcast. And Jeff Marek is a very measured commentator. And in no uncertain terms, he just talked about them puck watching, flat out not getting the job done. And I think that was that was really interesting for me because, we criticize players on their performance regularly here. But to hear it from Marek, I just thought that was a very impartial outside observer telling it like it is, with not trying to massage anyone's ego or tiptoe around things. And Bieksa said these problems with Nurse and Ceci he was very kind, saying a little bit of video work. I mean, come on, this has been going on all playoffs. And although Bieksa clearly spelled out the mistakes on the 2 goals against, it's not just these 2 goals. If it was just these 2 goals against, some video work, but this has been ongoing. So Nurse, Bruce, in terms of his plus minus, we actually track if you're individually responsible. So he's only made major contributions at even strength to 2 of it's the 9 goals he's been on the ice for. Just 2 of the 9 has he actually made a major contribution on. And in terms of the mistakes on the goals, it's 15 of those goals where he's been a major culprit on those goals against. And that's significantly more than the other top D-men who are all around 9 or 10, including Ceci. So you expect defensemen when they're on the ice, they're probably
of course
one of the guys, but he's a high percentage of the goals he's on the ice for he's personally making a major mistake on. So it's so tough to watch because I've been a fan of Darnell Nurse for years. I supported the contract that he got. I thought he earned it. And I thought there was a really good chance he was going to pay out on it. There's still obviously that chance. This could just be some kind of injury. First of all, most obvious thing, injury leads to bad play. So it could be that. But it is frustrating that a lot of these are kind of mental things, mental errors, not seemingly physical errors.
I lied, by the way. He was not on the ice for a goal against in Game 6 versus Dallas, the 2-1 win. I'm just looking at his game log now, and that game, badly outshot, but that was a game where Skinner made a lot of mistakes go away. And otherwise, it goes all the way back to Game 4 at LA.
Yeah, I don't know why they broke up Kulak Nurse. I don't get it, and I think they should have stuck with that, and they might have won Game 1, Bruce, if the coach hadn't made that alteration, because
well, Nurse himself was quoted as saying how well the Oilers played defensively in that game. I saw that I didn't get the context of the quote, just that he thought Oilers played well defensively in that game, which was kind of an ironic statement given, his pairing got lit up for the only 2 goals in the game. But I guess he's speaking on behalf of the team.
Some people are saying the first goal against really wasn't on Nurse and Ceci, but I want to contrast that with a different goal against, or not a different goal against, but a different sequence. There was a play in the second period where just a horrendous line change by the entire line of Draisaitl, Kane, and Desharnais. Holloway, excuse me. So Kulak and Broberg then face essentially a 4-on-2, 5-on-2 situation. And how did they play it? Perfectly. They didn't bite on the puck carrier. They didn't charge towards the puck carrier as Nurse did, or then as Ceci did. They just backed up and they defended space and tried to buy time until the rest of the players could get back on the ice and come and help them. And it worked. Broberg went for the block shot, and he made the block shot. Key moment in the game. They got the rebound, and they put one okay shot, and then they got a really dangerous rebound after that, but Skinner held them in there. But it just settled things down enough, that initial block, and then backing up, buying time, and
Protecting the net front.
not getting beat on that pass, which is the deadly thing to happen on a play like that, is the cross seam pass for the shot. Yeah. They didn't allow that to happen. And that's what it was, just, mental errors by over aggressiveness by first Nurse and then Ceci on that goal against. And these are two veteran defensemen who should just play that old man game, play that Nicholas Lidstrom game on defense, where you're reading the play and blocking the pass, making sure the danger man doesn't score. And that's what they didn't make sure of, and it's baffling.
Yeah, over aggressiveness on the first one, under aggressiveness on the second one.
Well,
Bennett was the only aggressive player on the ice at that moment.
It's like the Oilers went to sleep.
Nobody took him out, and nobody defended his pass.
Yeah. Okay, I think we've beat this to death. It's much on our minds, obviously.
Yeah.
Bruce, the final thing we'll talk about is this idea that Florida is going to be better. Like, the Oilers did have 16 to 8 grade A shots, so the idea is Bobrovsky won them the game almost single-handedly. The Oilers probably deserve to win that game. That's hockey. It happened in Dallas Game 6 against the Dallas Stars. Now it just happened at the Oilers. But so the idea is the Florida Panthers are going to be much better in this second game. What do you think?
I think it's pretty highly likely that they're going to be better, David. I thought they were much better, frankly, within the first game in the third period.
Yeah.
And once they got into the third period and it was 2-0, it seemed like the clock just melted away, and Edmonton was running out of ideas as to how to generate chances after getting, quite a few. I thought Florida made a few blunders, frankly, that Edmonton had 3 out-and-out breakaways and maybe 5 occasions during the game where it was a, shooter on goalie situation. And the goalie came up with the answers, obviously, in each case. I'm not sure there was any where it was a good pass and a slammed one-timer on net like the 2 Florida goals were. That said, obviously Bobrovsky was the difference maker in the game, but by the third period, he didn't have near so much work to do, and Florida seemed to have their act together much more down the stretch of that game. I find that a little worrisome. You don't want to fall behind these guys again. Let's put it that way. And the Oilers need to find a way relatively early in this game to score a damn goal.
Yeah, the closest the Oilers came to that kind of pass for a wide open shot that you almost expect to score was when Nugent Hopkins took that pass on the power play, but he missed the net on his shot.
It was a rebound, but yes. Okay.
Oh, was it a rebound?
Yeah. Yeah, Draisaitl hammered a shot on net.
Oh, that's right.
And then there was one in the third where Draisaitl fed it across to McDavid, and he was a great chance, but he didn't really make a great shot. And then after that, the Oilers kind of lost steam, and Florida kind of set the pace the rest of the way. And that I found worrisome. That partway through that game, the Cats seemed to settle down and take control. So I anticipate they will be stronger in the out of the gate tonight than they were in that game where 20 seconds into the first period, Hyman is alone in front, bouncing one off the mask of Bobrovsky. And it was like he hit in the video games, when the guy gets the power pill or whatever and becomes invincible. It's like that hitting Bobrovsky on the mask. That was the net result for that. From then on, he was like invulnerable to goals against it, because that was his first stop of the 32, was it? Yeah.
Well, one of the most reviled GMs in NHL history, Dale Talon, signed Bobrovsky, and there's a lot of criticism about that contract for many years because Bobrovsky didn't play very well. But this is
10 years, 70 million. You mean 7 years, 70 million? Some people criticize that.
They did, Bruce. He earned a lot of that back in game one. We'll see if he's
They're probably
he's
not
the
complaining right now.
he's the Conn Smythe winner. The contract paid out. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the fact of the matter. And even bad GMs or mediocre GMs make some really good moves. So as Ken Holland continues to say, you make a ton of moves, and you just hope that the good ones really outnumber the bad ones, and that the bad ones aren't too terrible. So, all right. Yeah, I think Florida is going to be better. I think the Oilers are going to be better though too. And so the gap in play could be as similar. Like the Oilers could dominate the play again, being the hungrier team. It's more likely to be, let's say, the grade A shots were 16-8. I think it's going to be more even though. I think we're going to see 14-11 or something like that for one of these two teams. And hopefully that will be the Oilers who get the edge in that, and Skinner will come up really big, and they'll find a way to solve Bob. Bruce, let's leave it there.
All right.
We'll talk again tonight. Thanks for talking just now.
All right. Thanks for listening, everyone.
And in the meantime, and in between times, this has been another edition of the Cult of Hockey podcast. Thanks. Stop recording.